Dragon Ball Super has a new protagonist and he is Son Gohan, that's right. But how so? Calm down because I will explain everything to you. Don't worry, Goku hasn't stopped being the protagonist, but a lot is going to change now that Gohan has achieved his beast form. So without further ado, let's go. Gohan has always been a character who carried a very strong narrative weight within Dragon Ball Z, and many more attentive fans realize that in the Cell Saga, he had already been clearly established as Goku's successor protagonist. The construction of this came from much earlier. Since the fight against Raditz, Akira Toriyama made it clear that the boy possessed an absurd, latent power, something that even the strongest warriors in the universe could not understand. Gohan's hidden potential was the seed that would later germinate in the Cell Saga, where he would finally become the center of attention. Gohan's journey during the Cell Saga was all a preparation for this role. While Goku always sought to fight for pleasure and self-improvement, Gohan represented a reluctant hero, someone who didn't like battle but needed to fight to protect those he loved. This contrast made Gohan more human and, in a way, easier for the audience to connect with. The pinnacle of this trajectory was Super Saiyan 2, the scene where he awakens this transformation, driven by rage over Android 16's death and his friend's suffering, is still considered one of the most iconic moments in the entire franchise. At that moment, everything indicated that Gohan had taken over the protagonist mantle. He defeated Cell when even Goku had failed. Goku's death, in fact, functioned as a symbol of passing the torch. The father had fulfilled his mission, and now it was the son who would save the world. This transition seemed definitive, as Akira Toriyama even stated that his idea was precisely to place Gohan as the main hero of Dragon Ball Z from then on. However, the reception to this was not unanimous. In Japan, where the work was published weekly in Weekly Shonen Jump, many fans did not accept Gohan as the protagonist. They admired Goku not just as a character, but as a true cultural icon. The Saiyan who had grown since classic Dragon Ball, who faced every challenge with a cheerful and innocent spirit, was irreplaceable for the Japanese audience. When Toriyama tried to put Gohan at the center of the narrative, some readers felt that something of the original essence was missing. This became more evident when the Majin Buu saga began. The initial idea was to keep Gohan as the focus, so much so that we see him at the beginning already as an older teenager, living his student life, but still being the planet's main warrior. Gohan becomes the Great Saiyaman, participates in the martial arts tournament, and everything pointed to him being the hero who would defeat the new villain. However, the reception was not as expected. Many fans found Gohan boring, lacking charisma, or even too weak compared to the legacy Goku had left. With this pressure from Japanese readers, Toriyama ended up changing the course of the story. He himself revealed in interviews that he did not have the habit of planning arcs far ahead, so he adjusted the narrative according to the audience's reaction. And that is exactly what happened. Gohan was gradually sidelined, and Goku returned to take center stage in the plot. Even when Gohan achieves his mystic power, Ultimate, after training with the old Kai, it was noticeable that the protagonism was no longer with him. The transformation was built to rescue Gohan as the supreme warrior who should defeat Majin Buu, but Toriyama, pressured by the audience's rejection, ended up choosing to reinstate Goku as the fundamental piece of the final victory. In the end, Goku, with the Spirit Bomb, defeated Kid Buu, definitively reassuming the protagonist position that he would never let go of again. This return of Goku did not happen only because of Toriyama's preference, but mainly because of the Japanese audience. For them, Dragon Ball has always been Goku's story, and taking that away seemed to mischaracterize the work. Gohan might be powerful, might have had remarkable moments, but he did not carry the same aura of eternal hero that Goku symbolized. It is interesting to note that in the West, especially in Brazil and the United States, many fans actually prefer Gohan as the protagonist. The victory against Cell, combined with the charisma of watching him grow as a character, made this change well accepted in several countries. However, as the series was published in Japan, the decision of Shonen Jump and the Japanese audience prevailed. In the end, this created a kind of duality within the work. On one hand, we have Gohan eternally remembered as the hero who saved the world in the Cell Saga and who had the potential to surpass everyone. On the other hand, we have Goku, who, even after his death, returned to reaffirm that the story would always revolve around him. This return not only shaped the course of the Majin Buu saga, but also dictated the direction of Dragon Ball Super, where Goku remains the absolute protagonist. What is clear is that the rejection of Gohan as the protagonist did not come from a lack of strength or importance within the plot, but from a very strong cultural attachment to the character Goku. He was seen almost as an untouchable archetype, a hero who could not be replaced. Even though the Cell Saga showed a worthy successor, the nostalgia and idolatry for Goku were decisive in maintaining the original course of the franchise. Today, looking back, many fans regret that Gohan did not remain the protagonist. The Cell Saga could have been the definitive turning point, transforming Dragon Ball into a story of generations. But at the same time, it is undeniable that without Goku at the center of the narrative, the identity of the work might have changed forever. Toriyama in this sense followed the voice of the audience, and the audience wanted Goku. Thus, we can say that Gohan was indeed the protagonist in Dragon Ball Z during the Cell Saga, but his era was short-lived. The rejection in Japan and the pressure from the magazine itself made Goku return with full force in the Majin Buu saga. In the end, Dragon Ball consolidated itself as Goku's story, but Gohan will forever be marked as the hero who had everything to be the successor but ended up being overshadowed by the weight of his father's popularity. With the arrival of the Dragon Ball Super superhero saga, something truly significant changed regarding Gohan's role within the franchise. Since the Cell Saga, the character had been prepared to assume the protagonist position, but lost space in the Majin Buu saga due to the rejection of the Japanese audience. However, now the situation is quite different. The movie, and subsequently its adaptation in the manga, showed that Gohan no longer needs to carry the burden of being the main hero alone. He has, in fact, become one of the protagonists alongside Goku and Vegeta, sharing the center of the narrative, and this is a much healthier and more interesting change for the story. This new approach is better because it doesn't try to replace Goku, who is irreplaceable for the Japanese audience, but also doesn't leave Gohan overshadowed as in so many other arcs. He returns with strength, but in a shared role, a co-protagonism that further enriches the plot. Instead of forcing a transition that divides opinions, Dragon Ball Super found a way to balance the two characters, valuing Gohan without diminishing Goku's importance. And it was precisely in Superhero that we saw Gohan's peak so far, the Beast transformation, a completely new form which carries the entire essence of the character since the Cell Saga. Once again, his power is born from within, from rage, from the need to protect those he loves. But now, unlike the past, this rage does not limit him. It becomes the basis of an unparalleled form that goes beyond everything we have seen in Dragon Ball. Gohan himself made it clear in his fight against Goku that he still hasn't demonstrated all the power of the Beast form. This is a detail that many fans may have missed, but it is extremely important. The simple fact that Gohan admits he still has much to show leaves room to imagine how devastating the maximum potential of this form can be. And unlike Goku and Vegeta, who constantly train, Gohan still has hidden reserves that are only released in moments of great necessity. This unique characteristic of the character creates immense anticipation for the future, especially in relation to Black Frieza, the villain who currently stands out as the greatest threat in the universe. Frieza, with his new black form, surpassed Goku and Vegeta in a humiliating way, showing that he is on another level. But this precisely opens the door for Gohan to enter as the secret card that can turn the tide. If we think about it, Gohan is the only warrior who has not yet been placed face-to-face against Black Frieza. He is kept in reserve, as if Toyotaro is preparing the ground for a moment of impact similar to what we saw against Cell. The scenario is perfect. Gohan with his beast form loaded with rage facing a Frieza who represents not only power but also the cruelty that has always been his most striking point. The most intriguing detail of the beast form is that the more rage Gohan feels, the stronger he will become. This factor strongly resembles the logic of Super Saiyan 2, but on a much larger scale. Now, rage is not just a trigger, but a continuous amplification. This means that in a fight against Frieza, especially if he harms someone close to Gohan, like Piccolo Pan or even Videl, the potential for destruction he could unleash would be simply incalculable, and this opens the possibility of finally seeing Gohan in his absolute fury against Frieza, a fight that would draw a direct parallel with the battle against Cell, but this time in a much broader context, where the entire universe would be at stake. The narrative could rescue that feeling of protagonism that Gohan had in the Cell saga, but now in a more balanced way, since Goku and Vegeta would also be present. This narrative choice makes perfect sense. Instead of replacing Goku, Gohan positions himself as an additional pillar of the story. We have three warriors who represent different paths: Goku with Ultra Instinct, Vegeta with Ultra Ego, and Gohan with Beast. Each of them follows a unique line of evolution, and together they form the new triad of protagonists who can face any enemy, even an evil emperor at his peak. Another point that cannot be ignored is that within Dragon Ball's logic, Gohan has always been the character with the greatest potential among the Saiyans. This has been repeated countless times by Piccolo, by Goku, and even by enemies who face the boy. So nothing is fairer than seeing him achieve this destiny now in Dragon Ball Super at a moment when the story needs new forces to expand. The eventual fight against Black Frieza would also be a way to rescue Gohan's emotional importance. Facing the villain who killed his people, who terrorized his father, and who continues to threaten the universe would bring an intense dramatic charge. It is easy to imagine Gohan's rage exploding upon seeing Frieza humiliating the Z fighters, to the point of unleashing the true totality of the Beast form. The most interesting thing is that this time, Gohan would not have to carry the burden alone. Goku and Vegeta would be by his side, but he could still be the decisive factor. This balance between sharing the protagonism and at the same time giving Gohan the crucial moment to shine is exactly what was missing in the Majin Buu saga. Now with Super Hero and its adaptation to the manga, the narrative seems to be moving in that direction with much more maturity. Thus, we can say that the future of Dragon Ball Super may very well put Gohan face to face with Black Frieza. If this happens, we will see not only a combat of epic proportions, but also the consolidation of Gohan as a shared protagonist of the work. No longer the boy who was overshadowed by his father, but the warrior who finally found his place alongside him, ready to carry the weight of the universe if necessary. In the end, what was once a frustrated attempt at substitution has now transformed into an expansion. Gohan no longer needs to be the new Goku. He is Gohan Beast, the hero who can defeat even the Black Emperor of the universe. If we really reach the point where Gohan faces Black Frieza, it will be the first time in a long time that he will have the chance to be put against a villain who symbolizes everything that is worst in the universe. Frieza is pure cruelty, the oppressor who has destroyed entire planets without thinking twice, and seeing Gohan lose control in fury against him would be something not only epic in terms of power, but also symbolic. It would be as if Gohan released all the rancor stored since the time he listened to his father's stories about the space tyrant. Furthermore, the fight between Gohan Beast and Black Frieza would have the emotional intensity that is lacking in many current Dragon Ball battles. Unlike Goku and Vegeta, who face Frieza almost as rivals who mutually surpass each other, Gohan would carry the weight of justice, rage, and the need to eliminate an absolute evil. This difference in motivation would make every blow more impactful, every Frieza transformation more provocative, and every Gohan power explosion more desperate. Another detail that makes this possibility so interesting is that Gohan Beast is a power still unknown in its totality. Goku and Vegeta have already explored their current limits with Ultra Instinct and Ultra Ego, but Gohan has not yet. This creates a mystery that can be used by the narrative to surprise fans in a way similar to what happened against Cell. When no one else believes there is a chance against Frieza, Gohan may be the last one to rise, and it is at that moment that he would show the true fury of the Beast form. In the end, this would be the ideal scenario. Gohan doesn't need to take Goku's place, but he also cannot be just a supporting character. He must be the decisive differential. And if there is someone capable of taking down Black Frieza, that someone is Gohan, precisely because his strength does not come only from incessant training or divine techniques, but from something much simpler and more powerful: the rage to protect those he loves. This is what makes the beast form so terrifying, and it is exactly this factor that can put an end to the Black Emperor's reign. But comment on what you thought of all this, and don't forget to like. Thank you very much for everyone's support, and see you next time.